Second reading this morning is from Mark 9, verses 30 through 37. They left the district and began a journey through Galilee. But Jesus didn't want anyone to know about it. He was teaching the disciples along these lines. The promised one is going to be delivered into the hands of others and will be put to death. But 3 days later, one will rise again. Though they failed to understand these words, they were afraid to question him. They returned home to Capernaum. Once they were inside the house, Jesus began to ask them, "What were you discussing on the way home?" At this time they fell silent, for on the way they had been arguing about who among them was the most important. So Jesus sat down and called the 12 over and said, "If any of you want to be first, you must be last, and in service to all." Then Jesus brought the little child into the midst, and putting his arm around the child, said to them, "Whoever welcomes a child such as this for my sake welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me not, but the one who sent me." There ends the reading this morning.
Couldn't believe that I agreed to do the sermon this morning, basically. But it helps that I'm not doing the sermon, we all are. I don't know if people have figured it out, but we're going to build a sermon, and the instructions are in the bulletin, and I'm going to help guide us, but let me start with a little prayer. Amazing God, help me, help us to listen for you, listen to each other, and find the learning that's hidden there. So we've got 3 questions that we're going to talk together about, the last one of which we're to keep some notes about. Is somebody assigned to...
No, I think the volunteer.
I'm also taking it, so there will be a copy of it. I'm taking it.
There'll be a copy.
Yeah,
of
but we
somebody.
want notes. We want somebody
I
to
know.
take notes.
But I'm taking it to write down afterwards.
Or
If somebody is willing to take notes of the responses to the 3rd question,
That would
you
be
have
good.
blank paper on the back of your bulletin. Not the others.
I'll do it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Donna. So that'll be just number 3. Don't worry about it till we get there. And as a backup, we'll have the tape. So the first question I'm going to share, and we'll spend 7 minutes or so. We have a timekeeper, I guess?
Me?
That's,
I'm
Go.
watching it right here.
although does it get slower and slower?
It gets slower
and
and slower.
I don't care, it's gonna be 7 minutes on that clock.
Good. So what is a story or a memory that you have as a child or a young person, when you felt valued and welcomed? What's a story or memory you have as a child or a young person when you felt valued and welcomed? Donna?
As most of you know, I'm a twin.
You gotta talk loud.
As most of you know, I'm a twin. I feel like I'm shouting.
Yeah.
And our home where we grew up was across the driveway from the church. And we were pretty regular kids to be going there every Sunday. And every Sunday in Sunday school, we would be welcomed, and then they wouldn't be able to tell us apart. So we were sort of cause for encouragement and feeling welcomed and embraced.
Even if they didn't know who they were.
Right? Finally, some of them started to call us twinner. Because you could be either one if you were a twinner.
So, what's another childhood thought somebody has of being welcome? Yeah, I bet.
When I was young, I went to Sunday school, but not very often. My folks didn't go to church very often, certainly not on a regular basis. First time I went, there was a gathering of about a dozen kids my age, and I was welcomed into the group. And I liked coming to Sunday school, even though I didn't hear them very often. So I had to take it.
Another? Yeah, Margaret.
When I was in high school, I was lucky enough to be the babysitter for the coach of the football team and baseball team, and later he became the athletic director. And they went to all of the games. So, and they thought I was fabulous. And I had always been very shy. I know that seems unusual. And, you know, there are stories about why that is. But nonetheless, it was that family that welcomed me into their home to take care of their kids, trusted me to take care of their kids, even if it meant overnight because they were going out of town and were staying overnight, and helped me sort of come out of my shell, for better or worse.
I thought you were pretty fabulous in high school, too.
Yeah, we know. I've got one that popped into my head where I felt valued, but my family moved to the town where I went to high school and my mom still lives when I was in 8th grade, and I didn't know anybody much in that area or know the little town of 6,000 in the mountains of Virginia, and I got a paper route, and turns out that they had trouble getting somebody to do the paper route, primarily because, and I didn't understand this till later, was because it was the predominantly African American part of town, and I can't remember exactly how whether I felt my parents weren't reinforcing any particular perspective about that, but I do remember one family, the Taylors, who every Saturday morning I needed to go door to door and collect the 65 cents for the week of Roanoke Times, and I remember going to the Taylor's house and just was kind of nervous, and African American family, they just were just happy I was there. They didn't, Miss Taylor didn't have the money right at hand, so she sent the kids around to find coins all around the house and chatted with me while they were doing that, and they paid up. I'd just gotten complained at by the white family up the street, like, this is so expensive. And so, but I just suddenly felt like, okay, I'm welcome in this neighborhood. And so early morning papers got, for a year and a half, I was doing that. Got time for another story or two? Yes.
Mine's a babysitting story as well. I babysat for a family of 5 boys under the age of 8. And the mother just thought I was the coolest thing since sliced bread. Now as an adult, as I think about it, that probably was so maybe, I think she really did like me. I think she thought I kept herd as well as I could. Sometimes there was peanut butter spread on the drawers and things like that, but I would clean it up. But I suspect she might have gone a little bit overboard too, just to keep somebody, because she needed that mental health time away. But I felt like, wow, she trusts me with all 5 of these rambunctious boys.
And look how your career turned out.
There you go. That may have been the beginning.
One more quick one?
Yep, one more.
I guess it's just about 2.5 years ago, I joined West Martial Arts, and I was so nervous and everything, but they were so welcoming, and now I'm halfway to black belt.
Nice.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Well, why don't we shift gears to question 2 then? And just take a few minutes to think about this. Why then might Jesus have chosen a child to teach and express the kind of relationshiping desired and commanded of us? Why might Jesus have chosen a child to teach and express the relationshiping desired and commanded of us?
Children are not yet already, or children don't live in little boxes the way some adults do. So they're more, certainly they're more innocent, they're probably more generous, and they're eager, usually, to meet people.
Don't have second thoughts on it.
I think another aspect of that is that children probably then, certainly now, are kind of pushed aside from the adult power makers, and children don't vote, and so children don't count if you're in a political scene. And so in that frame, that puts children less than, and so with Jesus lifting up a child, it might have been a symbol of lifting up somebody, a person who people would think didn't really count, and find out that in fact, this is the kind of ministry that Jesus wanted to do, and the way that Jesus wanted us to relate.
Thought happened to me last night. Wanda noticed, and I hadn't noticed yet, that Michael Moore's new movie was started playing this weekend, and we went last night, and I hope everybody makes it to that at some point. But one big part of it is the teenagers in Parkland, Florida, and just a little bit of backstory on what was going on, through these teenagers' heads as they were actually educating the whole country, and ended up organizing the biggest demonstration in D.C. and across the country worldwide ever in like 6 weeks, and they're a good example of what I'm trained to ignore, to dismiss or downplay just in my head anything that comes out of someone's mouth at that age, let alone earlier, and good lesson for me. Another thought or two about why Jesus would have pulled the kid aside to him and drawn a lesson out of that. Really? That's a thoughtful group. We're probably at about 3 minutes on this piece.
We've got 30 seconds left.
We probably could more easily talk a child into it than an adult. The adults were all going, no, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. And
So, yeah,
Possibly.
Sort of like Don or whoever said, I think the thing to me is that there's not a lot of preconceived notions. That's what the Parkland kids were basically, they were told, you can't do that. You'll never be able to do that. And they said, why not? And proved that it wasn't true, you can't do that.
From the story leading up to this, remember that the adults were fighting among themselves in a political
About
battle.
who was best.
Who was best, who was most important. And why don't you learn from what I'm trying to tell you? Jesus was saying.
Okay, well, let's shift to question 3 here, and our note taker is all ready to go. Sharpen pencil. So what? How do these learnings affect how we go about building church and followers of Christ? Being church and being followers of Christ. Also building church. How do we apply that to what we do here as a congregation? And as Christians?
Welcome all.
Hmm?
Welcome to all,
Welcome to all,
regardless of status, regardless of race, regardless of anything.
and regardless of what mood we're in that day. This is what we do.
I guess I would say, as you look at the organized ministries that we're doing now, and actually have always done, back as far as the Hamilton House Ministry, to people that had just come into the community from living in an institution. And even farther back than that, back to when there was a fight about open housing and whether African American people could buy houses or live on the north side of Michigan Avenue. We were in the forefront of that fight. And that's what happens when you get older, you remember these things. But the point is that one of the important things about this particular congregation, and why I believe, and you all have heard me say, that we continue because I believe that God has a place for us and expects us to keep people in ministry and makes it possible for us to do that. And I think it's because we are, in fact, to some degree, a large degree, ministering to people that society in general doesn't think has any power, has any worth, is a waste of time. And in this day and age, if we could just get rid of them, it would be better. Across the board, not just immigration, but across the board of all the ministries. So I think this image helps us think through that in terms of what our ministries are doing now, what they have done, and what they will be in the future.
Certain amount of openness, where that kind of a childlike openness that maybe we try to discipline ourselves to.
Childlike stupidity, we just kind of don't
But I think of the God is still speaking part. What that we haven't, we don't pretend to have figured it all out individually or together, but that it's important to figure out and do that together, and that's sort of, to me, also a more childlike way of looking at the world, rather than it's all set by somebody else and we follow what those people or those institutions have already figured out.
About 1 more minute.
So one more thing about, yes, please.
Along the same lines of what Margaret said, basically working for the underdog who basically are being like pushed to the side and not given a fair chance.
And that's what we've been trying to do with We Rock and the Poor People's Campaign too, is think in terms of not working for as much as working with those, which is an extra hard step to do, especially for a privileged person like me. But yeah, that's. And well, how does that connect to the child idea?
I guess mainly because a child is innocent, so they haven't got those perceived thoughts that sometimes as adults we get and act on.
Whether they're real or helpful.
Right.
Okay, well, why don't we?
And children also will, little kids go all the way up through teenagers, will always push the boundaries. So whatever the boundaries are, they'll push those. They'll try to see how far they can go
how much they can push that, how much they can go beyond.
And
That's another
and that's
aspect.
typically seen as a bad thing and something to be corrected. But it's actually a very helpful thing to have young people and the rest of us, when we can act like that, to be willing to stretch beyond that, as uncomfortable as it is, or as the society tries to make it. Well, I think maybe I was supposed to have a big fiery ending to this sermon, but I don't. But why don't we just leave it at that and let God do the rest?
Amen.
Amen.